Okay.
Game of the week. We got a graphic.
Oh, I do. I'm just not used to using it. Okay, let's
put it up. Oh man, you I think you may have ruined our sponsor for next week.
Yeah, maybe.
That's okay.
That was quick.
You just got free advertising. If you blinked, you may have missed it. But our game of the week was BOca, obviously one of the perennial D2 contenders against Palm Beach, who have been one of the best D3 sides in the state over the last few years. So let's get to some highlights of this game before we get to talk to our two coaches. So go ahead, Charlie, and roll those when you get a second. Of course, as unprepared as I am, I did not watch these highlights in advance. So I'm going to admit that. I decided taking a nap today was a priority because I was still recovering from my Key West trip. Even though I didn't go crazy.
Just keep talking for a little bit because I'm not finding them right now.
BOca, this was BOca's, I think, first game of the season, right? They were supposed to play Tridents last week, and that game was canceled due to a positive COVID case in the Boca Raton camp. Palm Beach, speaking of the Tridents, Palm Beach had knocked off the Tridents in their first game of the season and the first sort of D3 over D2 upset of the season. We were denied that BOca Tridents game last week, but we got to see BOca Palm Beach this week, and it was a thriller. It was as close as we thought it might be. And Charlie, should we just bring the coaches in? Oh, here we go. There's the beautiful gray hair of Scott Duval refereeing this one. Beautiful, sunny Boca Raton, Florida. Obviously, BOca in the red and white, Palm Beach in their traditional pink. And I think it was BOca that took the early lead, if I'm not mistaken here. We'll watch the highlights. Maybe we can bring our coaches in here, Charlie.
Sure.
Chris Oosthuizen from Palm Beach and Eyal Hakim from BOca.
Welcome, guys.
BOca are very dangerous in the backs, and they showed it here coming off the set play and opening the scoring with a try there. Eyal Hakim, welcome. Who was that first try from, Eyal? I'm sure you remember.
From David Roddy, our inside center.
David Roddy. Could be the hairiest man in Florida rugby.
Possibly.
Which makes him I think it makes him so slippy to tackle, but he's a very talented center for BOca. Open the scoring. Who scored the second try?
I believe it was Michael Kirk, our brand new Irish flanker.
Always good having foreigners. So BOca went up to an early lead, but Palm Beach fought right back. Oosty, who's that try from there?
Oh, he's muted.
Oosty's muted, so we can't hear him. The conversion's good from his South African fly hat.
Unmute.
Sorry, I was the try was scored by Bo Jackson.
Bo Jackson, what a name.
Yeah. Actually, Beauchamp Jackson, but everybody calls him Bo.
A former Riviera Beach, former LSU Alexandria, former New Mexico Highlands, right now back home and plying his trade with the Panthers. I know several teams were after his services, and for good reason. He's a great ball carrier. Into the second half now. I think it was 12-12 at the half. Who scored your second try?
They did. It was 12-12 at the half, and Palm Beach actually missed two penalties that would have put them on the top going into the second half.
There's the go-ahead try, I think, there from BOca. Who's scoring that one there, Eyal?
That's our fullback, Darren Oliver.
Darren Oliver, a lot older than he looks, but a very talented player. One of the very talented backs in BOca. Can't let those backs get rolling. And I assume this is the fourth try of the day for BOca. Through the backs again, of course.
Yep, through Darren again.
Darren Oliver again, and he scores somewhat in the corner. As we see the BOca players celebrating, but a close game. Is that the last one there, Charlie? I think that's probably the last kick of the game, or the last kick of our highlights. Out of Don Estridge middle there. Field seems to be holding up quite well, which is rare for that field. It sometimes turns into a sandpit. We see some new BOca jerseys, I think.
Yep, we played in our brand new jerseys this weekend as well.
One of these days, BOca will make up their mind what their colors are. Red is clearly the primary color. Some years it's navy, some years black is the secondary color. I don't know. But I know traditionally navy was the color. But I'm glad to see them back in red and navy. Red and black needs to go away. Anyway, let's talk to our coaches from this. The winning coach, Eyal, and obviously Chris Oosthuizen ended up, unfortunately, on the losing side of things. Let's talk to Eyal first. Eyal, talk to us about the game on Saturday and how it went.
Well, it took a little bit for our guys to get kind of in a rhythm. We had a full week off as due to the COVID issues that we had. We had a player test positive, so we took the full week off and had everybody get tested, made sure that everybody was negative going into the game against Palm Beach. So we basically had going into the game one walkthrough on Friday prior to the game. And I think we had a mix of emotions on the guys. Some of the guys it took a little while to get into the game, and some were a little too amped up for the game and kind of made a few not typical mistakes that they made because they were a little too angst up.
Yeah, you obviously, I remember you had a friendly against Tridents. Oh no, Crew, excuse me, that came down and played you in a friendly that I refereed. And obviously, one game of contact over the last couple of months. It's not the best preparation. How, other than obviously the issue last week, how has BOca been dealing with the pandemic? I know you've had a few players back in the day that had it, but before we really got started, what sort of things have you used to get through this in practice?
A lot of it is them continuously moving and being honest with each other about what, if they have any symptoms or anything like that, not coming to training when they're not feeling well. A lot of players feel like they're going to lose a spot if they miss a practice. And I'd rather them tell me, hey, I'm not feeling well, and not show up, than us having to go through a full week of missing practice because of something like that, something that can be, figured out early on. And sometimes they just, like the guy that came on Tuesday that we had an issue with, he wasn't feeling any symptoms that he let us know about. So it makes it very tough to figure out, but all the guys took the time to go get tested and make sure that everything was, cleared before we did anything past that.
Yeah, I'm glad everybody turned out to be negative. Obviously you can only control, what your team is doing. But even that's hard enough. You really can't control what the opponents do. What's been the toughest part about getting a team going during this pandemic?
I think the biggest issue was just getting guys comfortable to start moving again. And I think once they got into the realm of, okay, training's done at a specific pace to make sure that we're not standing around and talking and exposing each other to anything that could be potentially bad. They became more and more comfortable with things that we're doing at training. So everything is geared towards continuously getting them to move so that we're not breathing the same air in the same spot, and obviously doing the proper checks to do before training to make sure that everybody's coming in at least at a specific level rather than, just letting anybody come into training.
For sure. And talk about Palm Beach. Obviously your opponents on Saturday, you knew a little bit about them, but talk about what challenges they pose to your team.
Palm Beach was probably the hardest team we've faced in, I would say, other than the Tridents in the last year or so. They really posed a push defensively that we hadn't matched up against yet. So they put a lot of problems for our guys, feeling pressure that they don't normally feel in games. So that kind of made them have to react a little bit differently than they normally would. And it took a little bit for them to actually figure out how to react to the defensive pressure that they gave. And then on attack, they have a lot of great athletes out there. So that made it tough for them just to, have to man up and take guys to the ground. And they won a few of those contact battles in the first half, unfortunately.
No doubt. They got some big bodies and some very talented athletes, as you said. I'll go back to BOca. Who are some of the key players we should be looking out for? I know Darren Oliver, as you mentioned it during those highlights, and Dave Roddy, you've got some real solid backs, but who else we should be keeping an eye on?
Well, one of the players that wasn't there was our 8-man, Brendan O'Donoghue. He's a South African import, huge boy, fast, can run around. And then we have a few players that are coming up slowly. One of the guys that's really growing into a position is Michael Fish, our hooker. I mean, most of our guys are slowly coming into their own as in general. So a lot of the guys are really pushing each other to get better and better and better. So I can't really name just a couple players that make a difference, because with the way that we play, we try and play expansive rugby and not just focus on one person trying to score all the time or do everything for us.
Now you're putting in, I think, 2 sides for Ruggerfest this Saturday.
We are, yes.
So we should expect to see. Are you splitting them into? Are you evening them out, or are you putting one stronger team than the other? You think?
That's decisions to be made on Friday.
Well, let's get to my final question. I know I sent you this one. I'm not sure how you felt when I sent it to you, but BOca's been very close to obviously state titles over the last few years. you're being picked by the Tridents. You obviously weren't coaching for those years, but what do you think has really kept this club from winning more titles over the last 5 years?
I honestly couldn't tell you. They've got all the athletes to be able to do it. That's part of the thing that makes it a little bit confusing, because they've been at the state title game. They've fought all their way up there, and it was normally a tight game that they would lose. It wasn't like a blowout. Yeah. So I honestly don't know. I don't know. It could have been from a mistake. Could have been from a coaching mistake. It could have been from any kind of mistake when it's a tight game like that. So it's really hard to say, there was one thing that could be improved. What we're trying to do now as a club is slowly improve the culture into a more professional style of overall attitude towards the game, so that when they get out there and they do hit that title game, it's taken on with that same approach as you would in a professional atmosphere, so that when they get on the field, it's all business. There's no room for the mistakes that they may have before taken on.
Well, good stuff. Thanks for the info, Ale. Let's get to Chris Oosty. Hang out with us, Ale, in case we have anything else for you. But let's talk to Chris Oosthuizen, the losing coach on Saturday. Chris, talk to us from how that game went from your viewpoint.
Yeah, keep on rubbing the losing in.
Listen, you've had a very successful few years as coach of Puppies. You got to lose now and again to keep the boys honest.
Yeah. No, I mean it's no biggie losing to a quality team like BOca. We knew that we were in a fight right from the start, and I'm very proud of my boys, how they stood up and played their game. You can only play what is in front of you, and in the end, 2 of the tries were scored off our mistakes. And mistakes come up in Ale's conversation, and that's going back to my boys too. The more mistakes you make, the easier it is for the other team to capitalize on that. And a quality team with guys that jump on those mistakes, it's going to punish you. So overall, I'm really happy and proud of my boys. We executed our defensive plan, what we tried to do. Some of the stuff that we tried to do did not come off, and was exposed wide out. And that's fine. That's a learning experience, and the guys will learn from it, and go to the drawing board and fix those stuff. I have to say I had 2 critical injuries before we go into this game, 2 key playmakers. And so we had to move players around to fill in the gaps. And one of the players actually played injured, and it was clear that he couldn't launch. Launch speed was just not there for him. But other than that, man, I'm really happy, and it was a quality rugby match. I really enjoyed watching it, just as a rugby fan.
Excellent. Obviously, you guys will play each other again next month. I assume you'll be watching the video and sort of learning. Did things go to plan? Other than the mistakes? So you said you're pretty proud of the way they played, so I assume so.
Yeah, we had no attack. Our attack, which is normally a very good weapon for us, just did not fire. I don't know if the players were a little overwhelmed by the quality of the players that were opposite them, probably. Right. But there was very little attack, scripted attack, or our starter plays just did not come off the way we wanted to. Our lineouts were just abysmal. And you can't have that type of game and not fire on your own ball. Scrums were fantastic. I was very happy with my scrums, both on attack and defense. But other than that, it's back to the drawing board and see how we can fix this.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to that rematch for sure. Now, you guys have lost a couple of games due to some cancellations. You were due to play Fort Lauderdale and Miami. I know earlier this season, 2 teams that have had struggles here early in the year. But I think we had some news on some rescheduling.
Right. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, we have some reschedules. We get Miami and we get the Tridents again. At some point, home games.
Yeah.
And it's just to give the boys rugby time. It's repetition, and then you can iron out those mistakes and execute on your game plan and refine those things that you want to do.
No doubt. Well, Ale and Chris, I appreciate you. 2 of the best coaches in the state and 2 of the best teams in the state. I'll look forward to the rematch later this year, and maybe we'll see each other in the knockout stages as well. Appreciate you taking the time to join us this evening.
Thank you, Ross.
Thanks, Ross.
Thanks, Al. Let's stick with the BOca theme, Charlie.